Alright. And here we go. And welcome everyone to The Final Cut. I'm your host, DJ Hattrick, and I'd like the first to be to welcome you to the very first episode of The Final Cut. And here at the Final Cut, we like to introduce to you all the theater department, upcoming productions, ADP, music, all sorts of entertainment brought to you live here from Catawba. And right now, I have a special guest here with me, Sydney Berk, who's the director of the upcoming production references to Salvador Dahli, Make Me Hot. Welcome, Sydney.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I mean, anything I can do for the theater department, hey, departments need to work more together, so I'm more than happy to offer this service to the theater department.
Thank you.
All right, I guess to start things off, wait.
Was it not going?
Yeah, yours wasn't. I mean, yours is working. It wasn't recording.
Oh.
I don't know all that for nothing, but all right. Let's try this again.
Do it again. Take two.
Take two. Welcome everyone to The Final Cut, Catawba's new entertainment program, podcast program, available strictly here at Catawba. Right now, I'm with a special guest right now, Sydney Berk, director of the upcoming production references to Salvador Dahli, Make Me Hot. Sydney, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I guess, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am a senior here at Catawba, and I am a musical theater major with a minor in psychology. I'm originally from California, from Southern California, and I enjoy North Carolina, but I will probably be moving back there or to another theater community or city somewhere next year.
All right, thank you. Actually, one of the things that I've been interested in is what made you decide to choose musical theater as your major?
Well, I knew I wanted to do a discipline in theater, and it's funny because I've been focusing a lot more on directing recently, but I wanted to do musical theater because it kind of forced me to take music classes as well as theater classes as well as design classes, because my hope was to be as marketable as possible. Because although I've always known I wanted to do theater, I don't think I was able to really pinpoint exactly what I wanted to do in theater until recently, in the last year or so. So I was hoping to do a major that would let me have as much experiences in as many disciplines as possible.
Yeah, I mean, being an IS major, I mean, again, we're known as the tech guys, so supposedly know all about computers. But I mean, yeah, sorry, Mac, but I don't know about you right now. But I mean, right now, that's my current major, and I'm minoring in accounting and communications. And again, the same reason is because I'm trying to make myself more marketable, but because in information systems, there really is no, because you break it down, you got networking, you got databases, you got the administration portion of it. So, it's so broad that to really focus down on something, I felt the need to go with those two minors.
Yeah.
So, well, anyways, tell us about the upcoming production.
Well, References to Salvador Dahli, Make Me Hot is by Jose Rivera, and he is a Puerto Rican playwright. And the play itself takes place in Barstow, California, and I guess it's a very ensemble piece, so I don't want to say the main character, but I guess, so to speak, the main character is named Gabriella, and her husband is a soldier in the Persian Gulf War. And the play itself takes place just after the Persian Gulf War has ended. And it's a very surrealist piece in certain aspects. It's very poetic in the language. There's a character who plays a coyote, a character who plays a cat. There's someone who plays the moon, a piano playing moon. And the set itself is very surreal. We're very influenced by Salvador Dahli, given the title, it makes sense. But then there's also aspects of the production that are definite realism. At the core of the play, it is a piece about the conflict of relationships and how no matter how long you're with someone and no matter how much you love someone, you'll never fully understand them, and you can never have all of them. So it's kind of simultaneously a realism piece that everyone can relate to, and then a surrealist piece that pushes boundaries. It's technically magical realism, which is, I guess, where the Latin American aspect comes in, but it's a show that's kind of a bunch of different things all at once.
Yeah, Greg Stone was actually explaining to me how it's like, you have, like you mentioned, a moon, well, not the moon, that's the new one, but like a cat, a coyote, and then you actually have I guess the only real, like, just one human character throughout the production. What was it like, trying to incorporate the animal, I guess the personalities of, like the human characteristics of an animal, or of a human being into the animal itself?
Well, that part was a lot of fun, but if you look at it, it's not all that different than approaching a human character. In the same way, when you're approaching a human character, you want to know first and foremost what it is that they want. Like, at the core of the relationship, what does each person want from each other? And that's where the conflict comes in. Because in most playwrights decide that two characters in a scene want different things, hence conflict, hence the reason to tell a story. And at the core of it, we approached the cat and the coyote no differently than we would approach the human characters. But then, on top of that, we also did a lot of extra work looking at the movement specifically. We worked with viewpoints, which is a technique developed by Anne Bogart and Mary Overly and a lot of other theater people that most listeners of this podcast will not know about. But we used a lot of expressive gesture work and a lot of movement work to help them find a new way of moving. How would a cat move if they were how would a cat move, how would a coyote move, how would a moon move, and also finding ways to physically express like the emotions and the poetry of the language and of the conflict.
Okay, so I'm going to say, what kind of, so in terms of integrating all of that, what would you say was the biggest challenge in, I guess, incorporating all of that into, like, I guess just incorporating all of that into one huge production? Again, magic realism. If you were to take it a step back and be like, well, that's, if I remember correctly, it's a paradox. Because it's magical, so henceforth it's kind of fantasy.
Yeah.
But then you got the realism, which again is just the reality of things. So, you got two clashing. I guess in that in the description, you got a clashing, I guess, theme going on there. How is it that you were able to overcome, like, to, I guess, make it, and to incorporate it all, I guess?
Well, originally in my research phases, because I've been preparing to direct this for over a year now. We found out last spring what we were going to be directing. So not over a year, about a year now. And I started by reading a lot of magical realism, and I think what drew me to it was the discovery that a lot of the magic that I had read of, like Harry Potter and Narnia and all of that, was always created in a fantasy world. It was in a world outside of our world, and we read about it, and then we decided that that's what fantasy was. But when I was reading Gabriel Garcia Marquez and Isabel Allende and all of these different magical realist authors, what I really loved about their pieces is it was incorporating the magic into real life. What happens when magic overcomes someone who's so in love that they begin to smell like roses, or what happens when someone is so afraid that they become literally invisible, or so in love that they begin to literally rise up into the sky, or different things that are magical but placed in everyday life. So a lot of the actual directing wasn't approached all that differently because of knowing that this is a world just like ours. These characters just believe in magic in a way that most of us deny it to be there. And also, I think another thing we worked on was just overcoming our boundaries in thought as people who know how to walk a certain way and talk a certain way and be a certain way, and just finding new ways to be, new ways to walk, new ways to move, new ways to speak and exhibit emotion that automatically gives it a magical or a more artistic way of being, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, Element, I've seen the movies, and I haven't necessarily read the books, but Element, I've been in those situations where it's like, you know, again, going to fear and feeling like you're invisible. It's just, it's not, I mean, to express it, it's just, it's almost hard for someone else. It's all, it's different for every single one, but I mean, if you really would look at it from an outside point of view, it's practically the same.
Yeah.
I mean, and the same goes for love, same goes for excitement, joy, lust, and all that other, all those other emotions. What would you say is the best? What was the experience like directing this production?
Well, first and foremost, I was really lucky because I was able to get a cast. I was able to cast a group of actors who were extremely fearless and trusting of me and the crazy exercises I was doing, because my goal was to work in a different way than many productions do. At Catawba in general, a lot of the projects I've worked on have incorporated more experimental techniques, which is what I love most and what I'm most drawn to. So I've had a lot of great experiences. I was in As I Lay Dying, so we incorporated, and in that production we did moment work, which is from the Tectonic Theater Project. We worked with them, and so I incorporated some of those techniques, and I incorporated viewpoints, as I said before, and then certain work of Chaikin and of Chekhov and different things like that. And I mean, most of it came with a lot of preparation, a lot of reading books, a lot of figuring out, making sure that I knew what I was talking about, and not just
making it. It's just all, yeah. More or less, it's like I'm not just making this up as I go. It's more, this is like, I took all this time, and then, you know, researched, you know, read books. I mean, whatever you needed to do in order to develop, I guess experiences as well to incorporate what you did. I guess the techniques and the approaches you took.
Yeah, and then once I found exercises that I knew I wanted to try, I was lucky to have actors who were willing to go fully into them and jump in and be fearless and make a fool of themselves and not care, because that's essentially what makes good theater. People who are just willing to be totally raw and soul-bearing on stage, which is really challenging to get over your fear of looking stupid. And I was lucky to have a group of actors who were willing to do that with me. And also, it was about building the ensemble and finding that trust so that we'd be willing to do that together as a group.
All right. What would you say was the most challenging part of directing this production?
I think the most challenging thing about directing in general is finding different ways to speak to different people, because the thing about theater is it's not like math or like science where you're giving everyone the same information that they need to learn. Everyone has different characters, and everyone also has a different way of communicating. I might go about explaining something to one actor through action verbs or through a mental process, and to them, they can incorporate it and get it, and it's perfect. And to someone else, they need to come at it from a physical standpoint. They need to actually get it in their body and do it physically to have any change happen. So it takes a while to learn about your actors and how each of them work and how to communicate, because you have to communicate with each of your actors differently if you want to get out of them what you're hoping to see. So that was the most challenging thing in general. And then the most challenging thing about this production was probably the boundaries that are there of how we expect to be in front of other people, and then breaking down those, because it's a very sexual piece and it's a very heated piece, and we had to get over being a certain way in front of people. And
well, and it's probably being able to be mature about what the situation is, especially to those I guess the sexual scenes that you mentioned. So I mean, Yeah, I mean, it probably took a while. They kind of are just. I guess I'm just happy you found a crew that was actually able to take, I guess, or be mature about those situations, and I mean, not make a complete total ass of themselves. I guess if you want to put it in better terms, like, I mean. Anyways, what would you say is your favorite scene throughout this entire production?
Oh, I think that's the hardest question yet. Problem is I don't want to give anything away.
Yeah, well, okay.
I think.
I mean, if you could just summarize it maybe in like a sentence, I'm sure the audience will be pleased with it. Because I mean, just by what you said, I'm already excited about being part, or actually going to see it next week. So.
Oh God, it's my favorite part. I love the way Jose Rivera is able to articulate not just love, because that sounds so ordinary, but the challenges of relationships, and the way his language is stunning. And I think that the reason I picked this play is from the second I read it, I was like, oh my God, it's so gorgeous. And also the magic in the piece. I mean, everything nowadays is in front of computer screens. Everything is downloadable. Everyone's on Facebook. It's like, how many hours can we all spend doing things that aren't real? And the ironic thing is I'm trying to, as if theater is real. No, it's not. But at the same time, it's an experience that you can't have by yourself in a room. It's a communal experience. So I wouldn't necessarily say that I have a favorite scene, because there are many, many times throughout this show that I'm very moved by the language, by my actors, by the situations. But there's just a lot of honesty in this piece, because you see a soldier who is so broken apart by his experiences in the war, and you get to hear him speak about it in a way that I don't think most people would get to hear soldiers speak so honestly. And then you get to hear a woman speak so honestly about what it's like to be alone and to miss someone and to love someone. And then you get to see a cat and coyote, and you get to see the way that they interpret humans and the way they interpret what we do to our earth, and the way that we as humans damage our earth and don't respect our earth. And then you get to see a boy next door, a 14-year-old, and how he looks at love versus how a soldier who's been away at war looks at love. And then you get to see the moon, and how the moon just knows more than all of us. And I think it's just, we don't get to do a lot of things that are out of the ordinary. Like we have very routine lives. Everyone does, whether you're a college student or unless you happen to have some awesome, amazing job that takes you all over the world. But most of us have very routine lives. We wake up in the morning, we have certain things we do, and I just think that theater, especially a piece like this, can really take you out of that, can bring you somewhere else, can have you see different stories and different ways of viewing life that you can't get on Facebook, on Pinterest, on Google,
or on any of these other social media websites.
it's I just wonder, like, how long people can watch reality television before they're just bored and want to go see something that's magical and something that's different and heated and honest and not horribly scripted. You know?
Oh, so you're saying that reality TV is scripted?
I mean, some of it is. I don't know, but
yeah. I mean, to me, I've seen my fair share of it, of reality shows, and it's just, it's so predictable. It's. I mean, you got Jersey Shore. Really, you're following a bunch of, like, people. I guess the proper term would be Guidos, as they call themselves, and Guidettes. It's just, they're like in their 30s, and they're in love. They're in this summer relationship. Some are just pissed at each other. I swear, sometimes I wonder if they're not just provoked by who's ever directing or producing this to just pick a fight. It's like, hey, you go pick a Paul, go pick a fight with Sam or something, you know?
Yeah.
It's just.
And I mean, I think also college is a time when you have the luxury of experiencing culture that is either free or extremely cheap. Theater is expensive. If you move to New York City, tickets are going to be expensive. In Charlotte, tickets are expensive. So I just think it makes sense for college students to experience things like culture while they can. Because there's nothing wrong with having guilty pleasures. There's nothing wrong with being on Facebook. Like, God knows I go on Facebook every day. But at the same time, I think sometimes, although it requires going out in the cold and walking across campus, it's still worth it if you get to do something different, if you get to do something that makes you feel something, that makes you experience something you've never seen before, that makes you think.
It makes you go outside your routine and just feel almost, get that sense of freedom that you're not like, it's not like you're a drone just going in, you go wake up, do what you need to do, and then go to bed, and then just repeat, 7 days of the week, 365 days of the year.
Yeah.
So, why do you think Rivera used animals in combination with human characters in this playwright? Because from the past interview with Greg and this one, it's like they're trying. It's like animals with human trying to have human qualities, trying to express themselves or express human qualities. So, I guess my question, it's just more of what's the what do you think the motivation is behind using animals to portray, I guess, more like I say, the taboos, or something that people usually, or like you said, the guilty pleasures that people really shouldn't feel bad about either enjoying or thinking about or even talking about.
I think playing an animal and directing an animal and watching animals on stage telling this story, I think what's really cool about it is you get to look at people, you get to look at a woman and a man acting based on instincts. The coyote is a very interesting character because he is not domesticated. He acts based on survival. And the cat is domesticated and has this torn conflict of, am I wild or am I not? Am I closer to the human or am I closer to the coyote? And I think what's interesting about it is, although they're animals, it's still stories that lots of people will be able to relate to, because there are people who don't have the luxury of having the lifestyle of the cat. There are people who act based on survival as well, who wake up every morning and survival is their life the same way it is for the coyote. And then there are people like the cat who are bored and want the wild side, want to meet someone wild. There are tons of girls who are from sheltered backgrounds who want the bad boy, and it's because they want to taste that wild side, those instincts, those passions that they don't express. Yeah. So even though they're animals, it's still extremely relatable to everyone. So I think that it gives you the ability to explore those stories, and yet they're still stories that are so human, because humans are animals. We have the same instincts. Gabriella and the cat have so many parallels, and then the cat and the coyote and Benito have so many parallels as well.
All right, well, thank you, Sydney, for coming on the podcast. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, and audience, you can catch the show next week, starting February 6th through the 9th, starting at 7:30 in the FBC building, but better known as the
Florence Busby Courier Theater.
Thank
you. Down the hill.
Yeah, not in the main one, not in the Keppel or anything, where Keppel is. But tune in next time and have fun.
Perfect.
Thank you, Sydney.
Awesome. No problem. Thank you for doing
You're
this.
welcome.
I hope it works out. I hope people tune in. It's a good idea.
Well, it's